We will take the next question from Yakubu.
All right. Since we're on drugs and method of taking drugs, so now my question goes like this. Now, what are the social, the psychological, and the spiritual dangers of drug abuse? Now, because I found out that in our current generations, a lot of the youths tend to go into drug abuse. Now, so if we would love you to enlighten us and enlighten the audience at large, what are the social, the psychological, and the spiritual dangers of drug abuse? Thank you very much.
Okay, yes. And of course, all of those are related. I like to look through things as the psycho, social, and physical uh, uh, concept of the whole person. And so all those things are related. Psychiatrically, it can be adverse if you're an outcast socially. If you have chronic illnesses, it affects the other two. So those are all kind of interrelated. But when you're talking about drug abuse, what you're really talking about, and this goes the same for fantasies or any other kind of escapism. It's and these are all tied in with the idea of escaping from reality. It's the denial of God's reality. Reality is God's realm. Fantasy is our own realm. We're creating a world that's not of God, it's of our own making. And so that's kind of the difference. God is not fake, he's not artificial. When we go into this escapism, this denial of reality, that is fake and it is artificial and it's temporal. God's perspective and his world is eternal. And so drugs and other forms of escape from reality are really a defiance of God's realm. It's the attempt to create a world without God in which a person's pleasure or fantasies are the center of their own, which an artificial world is created, and God is either irrelevant or he's powerless, which is not true. It's something that's fake. John 14:6 again, and I think this is going to be kind of a recurrent theme, is I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So there is a way through hopelessness and the emptiness and shallowness of a narcissistic, and narcissism is a self-centered existence. It's by embracing the truth. I am the way and the truth, not a truth, not your truth, not my truth, but the truth. And the reward is life. I'm the way, the truth, and the life. The reward is life by coming through to the Father through Jesus, and Jesus alone. So if there's a rejection of this reward, it leaves us open to demonic forces, permanent separation from reality outside of drug abuse. Now, it's commonly known in the medical field that that certain drug use can send you into something called a psychosis, and that's a psychological condition where you have a total separation from reality. You might see people behind trees that don't belong there, that aren't really there. You might be hearing voices that aren't there. And you might be seeing aliens and all sorts of things. That's a permanent or a long-lived separation from reality outside of drug use. Now, some people say it goes the other way, that people with psychiatric problems are prone to drug use. But in reality, I think there's a denial even in the medical community to acknowledge, and the studies do bear this out, that even casual drug use can devolve into something like this. And basically, we can call this a psychosis. We can give it a name for it. But on a spiritual sense, this is opening yourself up to demonic forces. And it can happen even after just a brief drug use. So if you want to be separated from God, if you want to open yourself up to demonic forces, and if you want to create an artificial and a fake reality, then you'll use drugs. If you don't, if you want something permanent, if you want something real, if you want something good, then you won't even consider doing this. So.
Thank you so very much. Yeah, this is actually very, very educational and helpful. More upgrades are happening in education, health sectors, technologies, and now people are even more brilliant and they can create and invent a lot of things. Now we know that there's even gender surgery and all of this LGBTQ and the rest of them. So tell us, what do you think all of this improvement or education in the health sector will affect the church, and what is your own advice for church and church leaders?
Okay, well, that's a pretty big subject. I guess in the interest of time, I can address maybe one component of that, and that would be how can we as a church be involved in the medical field. Maybe there's young people that are thinking about going into nursing, or even a doctor or a therapist. How can we as Christians do this and be effective in reaching out to people? So I just want to basically give a little bit of a background in the medical field. In Western medicine anyway, which I'm the most familiar with. And of course, that starts with the Hippocratic Oath as being a cornerstone to Western medicine. And specifically, it promotes or prohibits things like euthanasia. Neither will I administer a poison to anybody when asked to do so, nor will I suggest such a course. It also prohibits abortion. I will not give a woman a pessary to cause abortion. And then there's the major cornerstone of Western medicine is the concept of do no harm. And for that, the Hippocratic Oath says, I will use treatment to help the sick according to my ability and judgment, but never with a view to injure and wrongdoing. Now, square that away with Plato. Plato was an ancient Greek philosopher, and not too far removed from Hippocrates. And Plato explicitly advocated abortion and even infanticide, not only as an option, but a duty of the state. Socrates, Plato's teacher, is famous for ending his own life by drinking a concoction of poison hemlock. So how do we square that away? What is the foundation of Western medicine? Well, Hippocrates belonged to a group of like-minded people called Pythagoreans. And the ancient Jewish historian Josephus stated that for that man, Pythagoras he's talking about, is in fact said to have transferred to many of the customs of the Jews to his own philosophy. So in essence, the practice of Western medicine is a biblically based idea in practice. Now today, however, you might be surprised to know that in all medical schools that I'm familiar with, they don't really ascribe to those traditional practices of the Hippocratic Oath. There's only a promise to not do that which is illegal. And of course, people in Nazi Germany could have ascribed to that in good conscience, saying we're not going to do anything illegal, but that doesn't mean all sorts of terrible things were going on. But after World War II, there came this sense of nihilism. And again, nihilism is despair, meaningless of life. And and so Western medicine has been caught up with that in a major way, and it's kind of reached a tipping point in Western medicine. So it translates to abortion in America up to the point of birth in some states, and euthanizing the young people, even for depression, for example, in the Netherlands, and soon even children in Canada. And this means Christians won't be able to, in good conscience, work in many fields of medicine, such as clinic workers, prescribing, say, single women with birth control that it acts as an abortifacient. And in Canada, if you're a primary care or a GP, they may come to you and ask for euthanasia. And a Christian in good conscience can't do that. Thou shalt not kill. So what does that lead us to? It doesn't seem as bleak as it does. God can turn this evil into something good, because there are opportunities. The case comes to mind in a woman veteran in Canada. She was a military veteran. She was a Paralympian. She was paralyzed below her waist, and she needed a chairlift at home. And the government said, no, we're not going to fund the chairlift, but we will finance your euthanasia. And so things like that in the medical field, medical people will either lose the skill to treat some of these chronically ill people, or they'll lose the will to do it. They're just not interested, because some of these people, people with chronic illnesses, are very difficult to treat. So that gives us opportunities for the church to step in and care for these people. But we can only effectively care for them if we remain a salt and a light to those in darkness. And that means not compromising on things. It's very easy to compromise and say, this person is suffering, let's put them out of their misery. But we know where that leads to. And in Canada and parts of Europe, euthanasia levels are skyrocketing, and I think it's probably going to go off the cliff in not a very long period of time. So that adds to the spirit of nihilism. And it's a great opportunity for the church to step in and treat these people. If you think of like the Romans, when you had a disabled child, they would leave them to die out by exposure in the roads leading to and from Rome, and Christians would take them in. So this gives us an opportunity. God can turn something evil into something good. But that only helps us if there's no compromise. And liberal churches have a very poor track record of compromising on these things. So we need to have some strong convictions and always follow God. I would avoid areas that are moral landmines, being a GP or even a pediatrician, where the expectation is you give me hormones to turn a little boy and to castrate him, or turning him into a girl as far as his physical appearance, and just it's very difficult. And so how does that look with the church being involved in the medical community? Counseling, as we've talked about before, in the medical spectrum of things, avoiding things like being a GP or a pediatrician, where you'd be tempted to provide abortifacient birth control, and especially to single people. Being a pediatrician, where there's the expectation of giving hormones to attempt to convert from one gender to the other. And I've known a number of Christian physicians and nurses who have compromised and eventually fallen from the faith. So this obviously is not a good place to be unless you have a great deal of support from your church and you have very firm foundations in what you believe. And so what does that look like when we can help? Being involved in things that can comfort people on a daily basis. getting into wound care. We talked about becoming a competent counselor. There's actually a course that can be taken and certification for $35 American, which can be a great deal of money, but it does help equip some people in doing these things. Looking to comfort and care for people that will be increasingly rejected by the medical community due to their bias towards euthanasia. So these are all very important things in getting the church involved to deal with these people. And so I hope that answers a lot of your questions. I think we just barely touched the tip of the iceberg, and there will no doubt be many more questions. I think due to time constraints, I'm not sure that for this session we can address some follow-up questions, but I think in the future that's something we might be looking at. So I appreciate your interest, and thank you all for being here, and may God bless you. And I'm going to sign off to Joshua now. God bless you. Amen.